to Let's Go Live. I'm Gigi Meyer. I have with me rom-com and contemporary romance author Ivan Scott. Welcome, Ivan.
Gigi, is great to be here, and I appreciate you having me. Looking forward to talking about all kinds of romance book talk.
I'm excited too. So I kind of did a deep dive into your profile in your books, and I have to say my question right up front is I love the common theme. So I don't know, tell us if that's a series or it's just the common theme that runs through it.
Yeah, it's a common theme. I am married to a ginger, and her nickname is Red. Her first name's Kim, but I call her Red. And so she's kind of like my muse. She's my inspiration. A lot of the material that I get for my stories comes from some of the stuff that she does during her day, some of the funny things that she's done in the past, some of the funny things we do together. So it's an endless source of material and content, the sassiness, the love, stuff, the sweet stuff, some of the arguments we have, some of the silly things that happen. A lot of that comes from just being married to her.
Okay, well, this is going to be a fun hour because I have a million questions for you.
All right.
But to start at the very beginning, I have to compliment you because I don't know any husband that bases his books off his wife. So that is like the sweetest thing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Well, it's, I tell you, as far as writers, we're always looking for new sources of material. It's like, okay, I need to do a book, whatever. Mine is like just down the hallway, or in the kitchen or whatever. So it makes it easy,
Yeah, in the car, on the way to church, on the way in the grocery store. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So tell everybody your titles because I love them too.
Okay. Well, let's start with the very
do you
first
have them there?
one.
Yeah, show them.
I have them. Whoa! And I also there we go. I tell you, I told you this was going to be an electric, crazy evening together. So I was right.
Well, you did say, and for those that are listening and watching, he has on his website, it is so cute. It's bourbon, bow ties, and books.
Books, yeah. Now,
on brand tonight.
Yeah, well, it makes it easy because it's like Red always asks me, what do you want for Christmas? I'm like, well, that's the 3 Bs, books, bourbon, and bow ties. So, hey, you can't go wrong there. So, yeah. Okay, so before the earthquake hit and bounced us all around there for a second, the first book is Redhead in a Blue Convertible, and I'll give you the quick on that. Red lost her job, and she's been very successful for all of her life as far as like her career goes, and her career is like very special to her. She's very good at what she does. She gets a lot of fulfillment out of it. So for the first time in the 30 years that she had been working, she had been let go from a company. And it was just devastating. And I saw it in her eyes, and I saw it in her, just everything that she did. So one of the main character in this book, Sarah Farnsworth, kind of meets a similar fate, a little more serious. She's a heart surgeon, and she loses a patient on the table. And so the patient dies. So she loses all confidence in herself. She's like, I'm worthless. It's a terrible deal. And so I took that inspiration from Red and put it into the character. And so it really helps the character come to life. And it makes it easier as a writer because I've got right there, this is what's going on. Boom, you just write about it. So that was the inspiration behind this book.
Can we pause right there for a moment? You're saying, Red, your wife was laid off after a 30-year career.
Well, actually, she had been in her career. It was about the 30-year mark, not with the same company, but with different companies. But it was the first time ever in her career that she had been laid off. Yeah.
Well, it's our identity.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so you're kind of adrift, like, what does this mean? And just processing. So what a great way to channel that can be devastating information and news into something that's positive.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was great because once she got back on her feet, it was like all of that confidence and all of that fulfillment and all of that, that self-worth had come back. So it was kind of like flipping a light switch. It's like I could see it all come together for her. Aww. And so in the book, and I don't want to give too much of it away, but Sarah kind of finds her feet again, and it's great to see the transformation. And the other thing that I really liked about that, and I think, Gigi, you probably would probably feel the same way, and a lot of your viewers would feel the same way. When somebody gets knocked down, it is so great to see them rise back up and not have the pity party and not say, it's somebody else's fault and all that. And they get back on their feet, and they get to be to a level that's even more successful than where they were before. So those are the stories that are very endearing, and I think they're kind of like life lessons for all of us. So And the
I think so. I mean, everyone roots for the underdog.
yeah,
Everyone loves the story where like you can just wallow a little bit, but they're like, get up and get going and figure out your new second chapter.
absolutely. And the other thing, I don't know if you noticed this in the book. So there's a bow tie hanging off
I noticed
of the
that.
D there. And so in the book, and it's a coincidence, not that I take any actual stuff that goes on in life and put it into my books, but the main character drives a convertible and he loves his bow ties. Crazy, isn't it?
Wonder where you got that from.
Yeah, I don't know. It's the darndest thing. Sometimes things just magically come together, Okay, the second book is The Redhead and the Ghost Rider. And this is a beach romance. And the premise behind this book, and I've always been fascinated by this, Gigi, is somebody that has great gifts, God-given gifts that not everybody has. And when they hit an adversity or when tragedy comes in their lives and they just kind of throw it all away and they forget who they are and they forget their gifts. I've always been fascinated with those people. And it's like, okay, how do they rediscover those gifts that they have? In this book, it's a Pulitzer Prize winning author who's written one book, and he won the Pulitzer Prize for it, obviously. And so he and I won't give away too much, but there's a tragedy in his life, and so he basically retreats to his beach house. He lives his life in the bottom of a bourbon bottle. Every night is a party, and he's just kind of drinking to be numb and to get away from what happened in his life. Well, there is a aspiring author that comes to this beach town, and she wants his help to write her book, so that he kind of rekindles the past. He kind of finds himself again, and so he helps her to write this book. And in the middle of it is a redhead who has been in love with him forever, and then finally she's just like, you know what, you're doing this thing with this girl and the book and everything, so I'm just gonna leave and go and find my own way. So it's like, does he go to find her, or does he do the book, or does he do both? And will she come back? Will he ever find her again? But it's a fun beach romance that was a blast to write. The other thing I liked about this one is, and I don't know, you could probably tell me this too if you'd be interested, the place that everybody hangs out is called Ghost Riders, and it's a bookstore during the day, but at night it turns into this bar. It's a book bar where basically they have the same building with bookshelves and everything, and they talk about their favorite writers. There's a crazy band, there's food, there's all kinds of beverages, all in this bookstore. So it kind of morphs into a different place. It's kind of like a speakeasy kind of thing where everybody kind of knows each other. And I kind of, it reminds me a lot of Rick's Cafe in Casablanca, where everybody kind of comes and they party and all that kind of stuff. But that's the premise behind the second book. So,
well, so I was intrigued by the title because Ghostwriter in the author community has a very strong reaction. And it seems like there's nobody in the middle ground. And so I have two friends that are ghostwriters, and I find it fascinating. I mean, one, their word count is phenomenal. Like one writes at least 10,000 words a day for her two. For her, I know. I'm just like, how do you do that? Like, how do you mentally keep going? So she puts in 50,000 words a week minimum. And then I have another one who is doing, I know, it's insane. And I have another one, she dictates, and she can get almost 20,000 words a day. Wow. But she across 3 authors. And so I don't obviously have a ghostwriter. I'm fascinated by it because I feel like they've hacked the system, and I'm like, okay, well, what do you do so I can do?
Yes. Where do you have all that time to be able to write all these great words, because it takes time.
Well, to me, I do dictate because I can speak a lot faster than I can write. I think that's the case for a lot of people. And so I've trained my little word to be able to accept dictation, but she does all dictation on not a microphone, but like a tape recorder. And she just does AI to translate. I'm like, oh, but to me, the gap is between, sometimes you need to marinate on your story.
Absolutely. Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because there's a lot of times, and we'll get into this in a minute when we talk about my dyslexia and that kind of thing. I write in a notebook, and so I can write 10, 12, 15 pages, whatever. But the thing is you go back and you're like, okay, that sentence is wrong. Oh, wait a minute, I've got a gap here, that kind of thing. But I applaud, and I have so much respect for somebody that can write 20,000 words a day. So I'm not poo-pooing it, but it's like, I could probably do the same thing, but by the time I finish editing, it'll probably be 2,000 words of that 20 that I actually making.
No,
You know?
no, I know. I always am going to her for hacks. I'm like, okay, I'm back. Tell me about it. And she's like, girl, I've told you everything. I'm like, I must not remember. Tell me again.
Yeah. Yep. Know what you mean. Okay. So the third book is A Redhead in Tottenham.
Okay, say that
And this
word again, because I did not.
a Redhead in Tottenham.
Okay, is that a real city or a made up city?
That's a real city.
Okay.
And it's a suburb of London. And the reason why I came up with this book is I'm a fan. I mean, I'm a big sports fan. One of the things I enjoy is the Premier League in England, and my favorite soccer team is Tottenham Hotspur. So I'm like, well, gosh, the girl has to play for Tottenham Hotspur, and there has to be a connection there. Silly how that works, you know? So the premise of this book, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Heaven Can Wait with Warren Beatty and Julie Christie.
Oh gosh, it's an older
movie.
Okay, I've seen it, but not recently, so I can't tell you how it ends.
Yes.
I can tell you somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, okay, well, that's good because we want to keep our viewers guessing, okay, what's going to happen here? We don't want to give them everything, right? Nope. So what happens here is, in this book, you have a soccer player. He's a goalie, and it's funny because I was a college goalie. I played goalie in college as well. Again, how do these things come together, you know? So we have a goalkeeper that plays for a professional team in New York, and there is an angel who is on her first assignment, and she's a little overeager, and she accidentally takes him from Earth and she brings him to heaven thinking that he's going to die in this storm. Well, he wasn't supposed to die in this storm. So they're trying to sort it out, and they're like, okay, we made a mistake. We're going to put you back in your body, okay? But the problem is that the body has been cremated. So it's like, oops, what do we do? So they try to find him another soccer player, but the closest thing that they could find, they can't find a soccer player. The closest thing they could find is the owner of the Tottenham Hotspur team, who is getting ready to die. So they're thinking, okay, this is good. He's gonna die. We have a spare body. Boom, we're going to put him in there. He's like, okay, I just want to do this temporary because I want to get back to playing soccer. I don't want to be an owner. I want to play the game. Right. So in the meantime, what happens is that there's the men's team, the Tottenham team, and then there's also a women's team in the women's league for Tottenham. So in the meantime, the goalkeeper for the girls team, the Tottenham girls team, comes to see him. And it's kind of an enemies to lovers kind of thing. So the old owner was a kind of a bad guy. He was only in it for the money and just really, really mean and cruel. And he was going to shut the women's team down and pocket all the money from the sale. So the goalkeeper comes to the new guy and says, hey, don't shut our team down, you know, and she's pleading with him and all that. But she's kind of mean and she's kind of sassy and she's very condescending to him because basically she sees this guy as the bad guy. She doesn't know it's the new guy who's the nice guy. Yeah. So they kind of have an enemies to lovers kind of thing. And so they go through the story and they finally kind of come together and they fall in love. And he can't tell her that he's a goalie too. So there's kind of, it's like, okay, when's that secret going to come out? So they go through, and at the end of the deal, the angel comes back to him and says, we found you a soccer player. We're going to take you out of this body and we're going to put you in this soccer player's body. And he's like, no, you can't. I've fallen in love with this girl. What's going to happen? And they're like, sorry, it's a done deal. And they take him out of the body, and then it's like, okay, how do we get these two together? So I'm going to leave it at that.
Okay, I have a question before I lose it. That is a fascinating storyline, so unique. How did you come about it?
Well, like I was saying, the movie Heaven Can Wait was one of my favorite movies. And so I kind of got a little bit of an inspiration from that. But I put my spin on it. And, of course, it's soccer players. It's in England. So it's not the same story. But that's where I got the inspiration for it. But I've always wondered, like ghosts and angels and stuff like that. Does that really exist? And it's like, sometimes I think it is. Like the realist in me says, oh, no, if you can't see it, it's not real. But the romantic says, oh yes, there's angels, there's ghosts, there's people that become ghosts because they have a love that's been unfulfilled, and so they still, even though they're dead, they still go and they try to find it and all that. So I've always had that kind of fascination. So I thought, what would happen if I was a goalkeeper and something like that happened to me, and I met this amazing redhead and I fell in love with her, and then it's like, sorry, you're going to be in another person's body, and get this. He's not going to have any memory of where he was or who he was or anything. So it's like, how are we going to get these two together? So you just have to read it to find out.
Well, him Hindu religion believes in that as well. So it is reincarnation with no memory of your previous lives.
Yeah.
Ascend to the as your soul ascends to the next level until they reach like level 10.
So there you go. But it was a blast to write, and I did a lot of research. The girl is from Scotland, so I got to research the Scottish accent and everything that. Yeah, so it was Samantha Densmore is her name. So I got to research the Scottish accent, and I saw a lot of YouTube videos, and I was just like, oh, wow. But don't tell Red I said that. She'll get mad at me.
To be honest, Ivan, we all, as ladies, and maybe some men out there, drool over Outlander and Jamie. So
yes,
you're in good company.
Yeah, so you get where I'm coming from, right?
Oh
so,
yeah, like, read me the dictionary.
And well, it's funny because in a lot of the book, he looks at her and he's like, "I'm sorry, what does that mean?" And so it's kind of a cutesy kind of a deal where she'll like say, "Oh, you silly Brit," because the new body he's in is British, but he's American, so of course he has no idea sometimes what she's saying. So she kind of like teases him and all that. And so yeah, the other thing that I wanted to tell you about this that was really cool. I don't know if you've ever seen the Norman Rockwell painting. It's called The Shiner, and it's the little redheaded girl with the pigtails, and she has a black eye. And she's sitting in outside the principal's office, and she's got this big smile on her face. So what the premise behind the painting is that she must have gotten into a fight with the school bully, and she's got a black eye and her hair's all disheveled, but she's got a big smile on her face. So that she beat it. She beat him up. So in the book, Samantha talks about how that was her father's favorite picture, and so when they see that. When they go to a gallery and they see that, and she explains it to him, and so there's a connection there. So whenever he sees the Norman Rockwell painting, which comes about later in the story, but I'm not going to tell you where, but there's a connection there. When we see that, we know, okay, something's going on here. So, but if you ever get a chance, look up The Shiner by Norman Rockwell.
I certainly will after this interview, but I do love how you take real things and weave them into your stories.
Yeah, it's a lot of, well, it's funny, Gigi, you could probably tell me some of the things that inspire you. Like if you see a painting or there's like a line from, a movie or something that it just gets inside of you and you're like, man, I got to use that in my story. You probably have a few of those too, right?
Oh, inspiration is everywhere. It's in overheard conversations. I'm a member of the arts downtown, so the ballet, the theater, that sort of thing. Also a member of the Fine Arts Museum. We used to be natural, but now the kids have moved over to the fine arts. And so it is all different characters, conversations, interactions that you have. There's a book that I'm working on right now, and she is going to be an off-Broadway actress. But how I came about her was literally when I wrote the first book in the series. She's book number 4. I was at a truck stop. We were on the road going to a baseball tournament. We all pull into, if you know anything about Texas, Buc-ee's is like legendary.
Oh, where's my Buc? We've got Buc-ee's everywhere. Okay. Yes, absolutely. Yes, so, we love Buc-ee's.
Okay, so I call it a truck stop, but if you know what Buc-ee's is, if you know, you know, right? So yes. We pull in, and this girl, has a ton of makeup, like way too much for during the day, but her hair is literally half blue, half black, and that was my character.
Love that.
Right. Inspiration is everywhere.
Yes. Well, yeah, I tell Red all the time, I'm like, that is too good to not put in a story. And I don't know if you've ever thought about this, because I'm like, well, why do I do that? Whatever. Sometimes I think about this, and I know this might be a little deep, but a lot of stuff that happens in the world, it's like if you write it down and you put it in a book, that moment is gone forever. Nobody will ever think about it. But if you put it in a book, it lives forever. And I've always been fascinated by that. I've always like, man, it's nice to capture those little moments, and that way they will live on forever. They're, even when I'm going to pass on, somebody will read my books one day, and it's like that moment has been preserved for history. And I've always thought, man, that's so cool.
It is so cool. And that's also one of the things that readers love. So readers love to be like on the inside, like it's a joke, right? Yeah. And so I don't know if you've had this where readers will reach out and they'll snap a picture. Let's say in one of my examples, she's addicted to coffee, and it's like motor oil, jet black. And then her love interest, she says he mixes like a fussy little cup. It's all chemistry with his sugar and creamer and all that. And I've literally had readers snap me pictures of two cups of their, husband and wife, and one would have his. And so it's that all those little things that you put into books that people want to relate to, they want to connect to, they want to be part of the cool kids or part of the, group. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I've always found that if you can reach inside and grab a hold of the reader's heart,
Yeah.
it's like you'll have them forever,
Yep.
And I just noticed George Gott has joined our live chat. And it's funny because this is so ironic. Hey, George, in this book, the main character, he's a rich guy. And so his butler is named Gareth. And so George is the son. Gareth is my friend on Facebook, and Melanie is his wife. And they're in England. They're in London. They're close to London. She's a redhead. So of course, Gareth and I have that connection. We kind of bond together and all that. But the reason why I bring that up is, okay, so he's saying Gareth is the dad. I'm gonna make sure I say that right. George is the son, Gareth is the dad, Melanie is the mom. And of course, if Gareth and Melanie weren't married and I wasn't married to Red, I'd be on the first plane to England, trying to woo Miss Melanie because she is gorgeous. But what I did was we talked about real life stories and things. Mm-hmm. I talked to Gareth one day and I said, how did you and Melanie meet? And he told me the story about how they were out together, and she was just this gorgeous redhead, and he was kind of intimidated, and he was like, I don't know what to say to her, but I want to talk to her. And so finally he's like, she's going to walk away forever. I'm not going to get a chance to talk to her. And he did, and they hit it off, and
the rest is
one thing led to another, and they got married, so I took their story.
That's so sweet. They have their own love story.
Have their own love story, and it was part of the basis in here because the main character, Mark, asks Gareth, he's like, well, how did you meet Melanie? And so he talks about how basically it's the same story what Gareth told me, and I just incorporated that into the book. And I kind of made it a little different because in the story, Gareth the butler, Melanie has passed on, and so every night he has her picture in a frame, and so he drinks a toast to her every night and says, good night, Melanie. Aww. So the main character Mark sees this, and he's like, who's that woman? What's this all about? So when Gareth is trying to explain to Mark, hey, this redhead, the goalkeeper, Samantha, you got to do something, you can't let this go. So he's like, well, tell me, what was it like when you and Melanie fell in love? And so Gareth told him the story. So Gareth and Melanie's story is forever in the Tottenham book. Aww. So just there you go.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So that's
cool. Book 3.
That's book 3. Okay. And so the latest release, The Redhead Who Loves Hemingway. So put together my 2 favorite things, Hemingway and redheads. So this one takes place in New York City, and the premise behind this is the protagonist has a rare copy of Hemingway's The Sun Also Rises. And so he has to bring it back to, there's this big Hemingway conference. He has to bring it back to the people that he borrowed it from. And I don't know if you could tell, but this building here is the Scribner's building in New York. And this is where Hemingway used to work on his books. So when Red and I were in New York a year ago, December, I'm like, we are going there. So of course it's not a bookstore anymore, but I took pictures of it. And so that's the cover of it right there. So they go to New York, and so he runs into this redhead named Darcy Davenport, who is, if you can picture Anna Kendrick, you know who Anna Kendrick is?
Mm-hmm, I do. She's gorgeous.
She is the inspiration because she's spunky. Nothing ever gets her down. She's like, she tells him a million times. She gets him into all these death-defying situations. They're running from the police. They stumble into a mafia warehouse, and so she has to talk her way out of it. But she always is like, hey, I've been in tougher situations than this. This is no big deal. It's so she's just this fun. She's kind of like the girl that you just want to hang out with, whether you're a guy or a girl, because she's so much fun, and she goes and just has this just full of life. And then we find out later why she's so full of life and her backstory. But basically they're together for a whole weekend. And then at the end of it, he kind of falls in love with her, but he has to go back to his school and all that. And so it's like, how do we get these two together? So that's the premise behind this one. But this one is more kind of a traditional rom-com where there's not really a lot of like serious moments. It's a lot of it is just comedy. There are some serious parts to it, but this one is a fun read. This was so much fun to write. So I'm just hoping that the reader will think the same thing. So
So whew, that is a lot because I think you published when I was looking at your first one was in what, 2021?
It was it 21? I think it was, let me think here. Because remember COVID kind of interrupted. I want to say it was because we're in 24 now, so 23. I want to say it was 19 or 20. And then because I think these two came out first, and then Tottenham came out last May, and then Hemingway came out in October of
Yeah.
23. So yeah, but COVID kind of threw a wrench into everything, so there's a little bit of a gap. But I'm back. I'm back rolling now. So
Okay. So before we get into writing craft, is there a book 5 or another Redhead book, I should say, because it's not a series.
well, it's funny that you mentioned that, Gigi, because I have book 5 and book 6 that I'm working on. Book 5 is
Oh,
done, and it's in the hands of beta readers, and it's going to be an April release because it's a baseball romance. So first week of April is when we're looking to put
opening
it out. But
season.
yes, the premise behind it's a redhead in Brooklyn, and the premise behind, yeah. So I guess move it around a little bit.
So is it
So the premise behind this one, I'm
what?
sorry.
Okay, so what stadium? Because
Well,
it's in New York.
here's the thing. Okay, so they go back to Ebbets Field. Well, how can you do Ebbets Field? It's a time travel.
Ah,
So they go back to 1955, and the premise behind this one is that the main character, he made a promise to his father that he was going to be a Major League Baseball player one day. He spends all of his time in the minors. He can't get to the majors, and then finally he gets released from the minor leagues. And so he's like, okay, I broke my promise. I promised my father, and his father is
yeah.
passed on. So there's no way I'm ever going to be able to make this right. I don't know what I'm going to do. And his father's favorite baseball team was the Brooklyn Dodgers. So there's a little bit of a
Yeah.
tie in there. So a saint appears out of the mist one day and says, hey, I've got a deal for you. You can be the starting outfielder for the 1955 Brooklyn Dodgers. And he's like, yeah, right, whatever. So, of course, after a little bit of convincing, they go back to Brooklyn 1955. So while he's there, and let me back up. So he's there for the whole season. So when October comes, the last day of the season, or they go to the World Series, last day of the
Okay.
World Series, it's like, okay, you're done. You have to come back now. So of course, during the season, he runs into a redhead who works for the Brooklyn Dodgers, and it's kind of like another enemies to lovers, and not so much an enemy, but she's really kind of putting him off, and very sarcastic, and it's a nice little banter between the two. It's kind of like if you've ever seen Ocean's 11 or Ocean's 13, the dialogue
Oh,
between the
it's
characters.
awesome. It's
Yes,
so
I'm like,
quick, back and forth, like back
oh,
and forth between them.
yes, and it just kind of flows, like you
Mhm.
said. And it's like, man, what I would give to be able to write that kind of dialogue. So hopefully in this book I came close to it. But it's kind of cool because they kind of the banners back and forth and all that. And she kind of resists him, and he's kind of like, well, I'm finally a Major League Baseball player, so this is all good, whatever. If I run into her again, fine. And then as the season goes on, they kind of come close, and then a little bit closer, a little bit closer, and then of course they fall in love. Then October comes, and it's like, okay, got to go back now. So, but what the interesting thing is that uh, the main character is like, okay, I've decided I want to stay. Can you help me to stay? And so he's working with the saint so he can stay with this girl in Brooklyn. Well, there's a bit of a mix up, and doesn't happen. He missed his chance, and he goes back to present day. So there, there you
Dang.
go. How are we going to get out of
I
this
know.
one?
Plot twist.
Yeah. So there you go. So how are we gonna? It's like, yeah, you stuck. You're back in the present day. Sorry about that. You missed your chance. You missed your window. So, but yeah. So that's the book that's coming out in
Okay.
April. Redhead in Brooklyn.
What is the release date?
It's the first Tuesday. I think it's April
Okay.
2nd. So whatever that first Tuesday in April is April 2nd. I didn't want to do it on April 1st because April Fool's Day, I'm kind of like, that might be bad luck for an author.
Well, you have to be superstitious if you're writing
Oh,
baseball.
absolutely.
It's
Absolutely.
the most
I play baseball.
sport.
I'm sorry?
It's the most superstitious sport.
It totally is. So, and you read about some superstitions with him as well, putting on his right spike last, because his father always told him, finish the right way. So he always puts his left spike on first,
Clever.
and then the right on first, yeah, or last. So there's some superstitions, but when I played baseball, you know, I never had a superstition, you know.
Allegedly.
Never, yeah, allegedly. Well, I transitioned to softball because I got too old to play baseball, and it was the same kind of thing. If I was hitting real well, I'd wear the same undershirt, or I would wear the same socks. And I kind of transferred that to my daughter, who's a big athlete. She plays soccer. She's 16, so she's in high school now, and so she's like, "Mom, I can't change my socks. You know, we won our game." And so she's just like, "Oh my God, it's another one. Oh, the house smells." You know, so
Okay,
yeah.
raising a baseball player, and yes, I know about the lucky socks and the lingering odor that seems to just like permeate the car. And when you pick up
Yeah.
the boys, you know, when you win tournaments and you keep winning, you're out there, oh geez, 12, 14 hours sometimes. And they
Yes.
all want to load in and go to Whataburger and smell.
Yep, I know. Now, do your sons have any superstitions?
They all do. Okay, so we have, so now they're all freshmen in high school, but these boys have played together for years and years and years. And so one, you know, they do that black
I do it too.
makeup.
I did it too. Yeah.
So one always does a cross, and then
Yep.
another one does like Batman.
Yep.
And so they lost a game, and it was because like those two weren't wearing the Batman
That's
and the cross.
right.
And some of them do like the two fingers. I mean, they all have their own thing.
Yeah.
When we were at Whataburger and I took a bunch of them in the car, you know, because we were in between games and they had just lost. They had blamed it on this poor child because he had not put his crosses and the other one did, you know, wasn't wearing Batman.
Yeah. No, it's a real thing.
That is
It is a real thing. Do not mess with the winning streak. Oh, I'm so with you on that. Okay, so real quick, the sixth book, and hopefully we can get this one out in the fall. This one is called The Redhead and the Fountain Pen. And so the main character in this story is lives in Atlanta, and his fiance kind of ditches him for a guy that has more money and can provide more. You know, so it's kind of like a bad kind of heartbreak thing. He moves to a small town in the North Georgia mountains, goes to a bookstore, picks up his favorite book, which is The Great Gatsby, which again, crazy. His favorite book is one of my favorite books. How's that happen? And he finds a Dear Jill letter, not a Dear John, but a Dear Jill letter in the copy of The Great Gatsby. And so he reads the letter, and it's a letter from a woman named Catherine who lives in New York. And in the letter, she's basically, this guy has broken her heart. He's cheated on her and all. And so this is her farewell letter. So somehow the letter ended up in the book. The book ended up coming from New York to this bookstore. So he looks at it and he's like, wow, I got to find this girl. This is crazy. I've got a broken heart. She's got a broken heart and all that. So it's kind of like a pen pal thing where both of them don't like social media. So they have no idea what they look like, what they sound like, you know, very, very few details. They don't do Zoom calls. They don't do any of that. They fall in love with words on the paper that are written by a fountain pen. He likes to use a fountain pen. She likes to use a fountain pen. So that's one of the things that they have in common. So I thought about this. It's like, you know, with social media, you know, I can see you, Gigi. I can hear your voice. You know, I can see pictures of you, you know, or whatever. And people see that when they're on these dating sites or when they're on, you know, Facebook, Instagram, you know, whatever. I always thought, what would it be like to fall in love with somebody just by their words and by their handwriting and knowing that, hey, you know, I touched this paper as I was writing to you, you know, so I've always been fascinated by that. People that fall in love just the old-fashioned way, just by their words. So that's the premise behind this one. So they write these letters to each other, and she is a concert. I'm trying to think of how to say it. It's not a violinist. She plays the violist. So she's trying to get a job with the New York Philharmonic. So he's encouraging her, and they're having this great conversation, this great thing with their letters and all that. And she ends up not winning the audition. Aww. And so she's like, okay, I've done all I can. I'm moving to Iceland. A friend of mine has got a job for me with the Philharmonic in Iceland. So you see where I'm going with this. It's like, okay, I have to meet this girl. I'm not going to let her go without trying to find her. So fast forward, you have a crazy Icelandic beast of a man with a giant beard wearing a big bear coat on a dog sled, taking him from the airport in Iceland to where the concert hall is. And so you can imagine just all the silly things that happen. So he's trying to find her, and I'll just leave it at that, whether he finds her or not. And if he does find her, what's going to happen? Is he going to try that again. Is he going to leave his life in Georgia and if it works out, uproot and move to Iceland? Or is she going to leave her life and come there? Or are they just going to say, okay, well, this was a nice thing, but, we'll just remain friends. So that's the premise behind book number 6. And hopefully that one will be out in the fall.
Oh, okay. One, I have to congratulate you because you seem to be pretty proficient at putting these out. And the storylines are just so intricate and unique. It's just so endearing to hear you speak about them.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Those are very kind words. And I can't wait to read your books sometime so I can shower you with praise as well. I'm sure they're awesome.
Mine are, no offense, Ivan, but you're not my target audience. Now, your wife, she might be, because they are very, very steamy. They are very open door.
Oh, she totally would. Oh, she was 50 Shades of Grey. She got all the books and saw all the movies. So, oh, yeah, anything spicy? Yeah, you're good.
So that would be my Cougars and Cubs series.
Okay, yeah. I think you got a winner there. Yeah, we're going to have to explore this one. Cougars and Cubs, I like that.
Yeah, that's why I just went with the series name, because it says it all.
Yes, it does. Already, it's like just in that title, in that description, I'm like, yeah, I know where you're going with this.
When you see the cover, she's gonna be like,
oh yeah. I think we need to do a book swap. We definitely need to do a book swap. And as a matter of fact, it's great that we're talking about, because I have a special tonight only, 100% off an autographed copy of my book. So hey, you got me at the right time.
Hey, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So switching gears to the author journey in your writing craft, tell us, because you're not full-time, correct?
Right.
You do this on the side. Mm-hmm. So what got you started? Have you always wanted to be a writer?
Yeah, I always have been. I can remember even in the 3rd grade, I wrote a story about what was going on in our classroom. A quote from the teacher. The teacher was talking to the class, and somebody was talking, and somebody was playing with glue and all. So I wrote about that, and then I kind of put that on the shelf for a while, and I didn't really think about. As you get older, you have other interests and all that. And then, I would write off and on. And then finally I was like, you know what, you need to get serious about this, because this is kind of a passion for you. Mm-hmm. This is something that would be great so you can leave it behind one day. So get cracking on this, get serious about it. And so finally I did. Back in 2019 is when I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to commit to it and all that. And the interesting thing is, you talked about I'm not full-time. So there's many times when it was like, okay, I don't have time to write. Okay, well, you need to make time. So I would get up at like 4:30 in the morning, and I would write. I'm like, okay, this is the only time I'd have to do it. And so I would write. And when I did the audiobook for Redhead in the Blue Convertible, I did a lot of that, a lot of the editing, a lot of the speaking, that early, because, it's like my father used to tell me, either you find a way or you find an excuse. And I've always, that's kept that to heart, because a lot of people say, oh, I'm writing a book, but, I don't have time. It's like, well, why don't you wake up early, or why don't you stay up late and do it? There's always time to do things when you have a passion for it. You'll always find a way. And so that's kind of, my deal, where it's like, I've got a job, but this is what I want to do. So this is kind of where my heart lies. And I think we touched, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was trying to remember if it's Dan Brown or James Patterson who would write on the train.
Yeah.
He would have to ride the train. I think his train commute, he said if there was no accidents and no delays, it would be an hour and a half. But sometimes it was like 2 hours coming back on the train. But it was one of those writers, and that's how he had to do it. I think it was James Patterson, because I have master class, and so I listened to all those writers.
Yeah.
I think it was James Patterson, and that's how he got his start. He was in advertising, and he said it was like the golden handcuffs, right? You get paid so much, you have a wife and kids and private school and a house and all this. And he says you can never leave your job, even though you want to leave your job.
Yep, Absolutely. And I'm sure that, and you probably do this too. I know a lot of the writers do this. It's like and this is just one of them. I got a zillion of them, but you know, a little notebook you keep with you. And it's like,
Oh.
okay, I've got a little time, you know, or if you see something like there you go. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Or if you'll see something, you know, write it down, because by the time you get to wherever you are, it's like, okay, I've forgotten about it. The other thing that kills me is like you'll dream something, or you'll be asleep and then you'll dream something, and it's like, oh my God, that's perfect. Okay, I need to write it down now, because if you go back to sleep, it's gone. And the other thing, I don't know if you ever known this or not, I get the best ideas that I've ever gotten in the shower. Don't ask me why they come to me in the shower. And by the time I would get out of the shower, I would forget them. Amazon sells waterproof notepads, and they have little suction cups on them, so you can stick them up on the wall, and there's pencils. I'll send you a link. There's waterproof pencils, waterproof paper, and you can write. And it's, oh, Gigi, it's the greatest thing ever. So
I do
yeah, sometimes you
voice notes now, because I'm always somewhere that, you know, you can't write or anything. So I start to do voice notes. And so I know what you're saying, because I dream a lot. I don't even know what that is. And so when I, you know, have my phone, I can't, you know, my eyes are so blurry. So I have to just like find voice notes, send it, and that's what I do now.
No, that's great. That is great. And I tell you why that's even better than what I do, because like you said, I'm half asleep sometimes. I'll get up, I'll stagger over to my desk, and I'll write down, okay, this is da-da-da-da-da. The next morning I'll look and I'm like, what is that? What did I do? You know, and then of course it's lost by then. Your idea is much better than mine.
Okay, so going back, you started at third grade, but you really didn't get serious until 19.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah.
so what was the catalyst? And so that was Redhead in a Convertible, wasn't that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think the catalyst was, as I've gotten older, I'm not able to do the things that I had been able to do. I can't eat the same things that I used to when I was younger. And it's like the clock is ticking.
Yep.
And I think that was the biggest thing. It's like, you know, one day you're not going to be able to do this. And so you better get on it now, because it can be taken away from you at a moment's notice. A couple of years ago, I had an accident, and I remember laying in the hospital bed. The guy next to me, and I didn't see him, but Red told me that he didn't have a face. His face was all bandaged and all that. He couldn't speak. He had a notepad, and he had a nurse next to him. Mm-hmm. And so he was able to write out, you know, I need water, or, you know, whatever, because he couldn't speak. And so I started thinking, you know, this is bad enough, you know, what's happened to me. But what if that was me? What if I couldn't write anymore? What if, you know, whatever. I have, you know, 24 hours in a day to write stuff down. Don't waste that time, because one day you're going to, and no offense to him, but one day you're going to end up in this guy's situation. Yeah. And it's going to be a sad day. And, you know, I think about, you know, my mentor, Hemingway, with a lot of the problems that he had later in life was because he was in several accidents. He was in 2 plane crashes, and he had concussions and all that. And so after a while, and of course, I'm sure the alcohol had something to do with it as well. But, you know, he couldn't think, he couldn't write. And when he realized his powers of writing and creating and all that, you know, were gone, that was one of the catalysts for why he's like, you know, I'd rather not live anymore. And I'm not saying that I'd kill myself, but that was the deal where it's like, one day I'm not going to be able to do this, and it's going to be a sad day. So I need to get every ounce of the creativity and every ounce of those stories that I want to get out there. I got to get them out now, because who knows, tomorrow it could all be over. So, you know, I can't waste time anymore. The clock's ticking. And I think that's what drives me and kind of gets me going, that, hey, I got to get this done.
I love that. I relate to that on such a deep level, because like you, I thought, you know, none of us are promised tomorrow. It doesn't matter if you have any sort of health issues or if you're healthy, right? It could be one car accident, that sort of thing. So I was like, I don't want to die with my music inside.
Absolutely.
If you don't get going, you are going to.
Yeah. No, I agree 100%. Not to be morbid or anything, but on my way to work, there's a cemetery that I pass, and I think about all the people that are in that cemetery. What stories did they have? What music did they want to play? What dances did they want to do? You know, those kind of things.
Oh, their dreams. Did they achieve it? What did they want for them that we know went by? I mean, I think some generations that went before us, it was about just survival. They didn't have they couldn't dream big. They couldn't like work their job, be married to Red, write books. They just didn't have that liberty because it was literally surviving life.
Yeah, it was. And of course, with all the medical breakthroughs that we have now, you know, like you were saying 100 years ago, you know, all the stuff that happens now, we just take a pill for, boom. It's, you know, back then it's like when you get it, you're pretty much a goner,
Yes.
you know, that kind of thing. So yeah, absolutely. I think about that. The other thing, you know, we kind of touched upon it a little bit at the beginning. I didn't know, did you want to talk about the dyslexia thing? You were talking about the writing.
No, I do, because I find that fascinating, because I was going to ask you, how long does it, your process, you know, like, do you do it at night when you said you wake up in the morning and do it? Do you dictate? How long does it take you? And then the dyslexia, any kind of learning disabilities or learning challenges, I should say, I would imagine they add time.
Yes, they do. And with me, I have to write in notebooks and then I transfer it to the laptop. And Gigi, I tell you, if I could just go straight to the laptop, I'd have 50 books out now. That's why I only have 4 books out, because it takes so long to do. I have to write in notebooks. And, oh, I'm sorry. Did you have...
Ivan, can you stop there? Why? Sure. Those that may have children or have that dyslexia in their life, why is it a notebook? What happens between the paper and the laptop?
Okay. So with me, I have to be able to write in colors. I have to be able to draw lines through sentences. I have to put notes in the margins. I have to feel like I have that freedom to write wherever I want to write, or, you know, put a thought here, or, hey, wait a minute, I want to write this in red today because it's a different chapter or whatever. That's just the way that my mind works. And then once I get it all written out in the notebook and I'll read it over, I'm like, okay, this makes sense. Then I transfer it to the laptop. But I kind of feel like, writing on the laptop, I feel like I'm boxed in. I feel like the creativity is just, it cannot escape. But when I'm in a notebook, and like I said, this is just the way that my brain is wired. In a notebook, I can do all kinds of different things. I kind of feel like the creativity is much easier.
You can write in the margins, and if you want to write going up the side of the page. And so really it's giving your mind and that dyslexia, like the liberty and the freedom to write however your brain needs to.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's fascinating.
The other great thing about that is I can go back, and I've done this before, I can go back to the notebooks and it's like, okay, I want to see what I did for the Redhead in Tottenham. And it's like a blueprint to a house. It's like, wow, this is where that book came from. And you see pages and pages of just squiggly lines and stuff crossed out, and, oh, this is really good. And it's funny because as we all are, I'm much harder on myself as a writer than by myself. I mean, I would not ever criticize anybody else, but with me, I'll write in the margins, are you kidding me? You call yourself a writer? This is the worst crap you have ever written. Get with it, you know. And I won't tell you all the words in there that I refer to myself as, because it's, you know, we have probably a varied audience here. But so sometimes it's like some of those notes in the margin are like motivational. It's like, hey, you know what? You were lazy when you wrote this. You know, why did you write this? You owe it to the reader to put your best effort into this. And so I'll write that in the margin sometimes. It's like, this is crap. Get with it. You know, you owe this to the reader, that kind of thing. And so I can't do that on the laptop, but I can do that in a notebook. So that's part of it as well.
Sienna says, I get that. I've got dyslexia, but Scrivener does that for me. Well, it's kind of similar to your notes in the margin, or when we send off our work to an editor, or have a developmental editor, and then I have a separate line editor. And so when they come back, you know, what I do appreciate about both ladies is they will put like, oh my gosh, this is laugh out loud funny, or they put their compliments in addition to the correction. So similar to your comments, they have not said this is crap, because I think that that's me saying that to myself instead.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and by the way, in Sienna, that's awesome that you have dyslexia. I've got Scrivener too, and that's a big help because it's a word processing.
Rearrange.
You can rearrange. You can take. There's like on the side of it. There's you can put your chapters in. So it's like, okay, I want to take this chapter and I want to move it up here, and it'll take it. Sienna, the other thing before you go, you'll love this. Okay, in the Ghostwriter book, the main character's name is Sienna. So there you go. Sienna, you're famous already. Do you have red hair? So there you go. I hope you like that one.
So you write long form first, and then do you you transcribe what you wrote at the very end, or do you do it in pieces? Like, I finished a chapter, let me go ahead and put it into Scrivener.
A lot of times what I'll do is I will do like by chapter, and then that way I can kind of get a flow, because I can put it in at the chapter at a time, read it over and say, okay, yeah, this is good. Okay, here's the next chapter. Okay, yeah, it flows together. You know, we're moving forward. You know, that kind of thing. So that's what that's probably the best way for me to do it. The other thing that I wanted to tell you, do you know what a pantster and a plotter is?
Yeah, I do.
That giggle tell you, yeah. So I am the world's biggest pantster, and I like bow down to the plotters, and I'm like, oh my God, I wish I could be like you one day. But I have the idea in my head, and I just have to write it. It goes back to my dyslexia. I have to be able to say, okay, I'm going to write this like this. I'm going to put this part here and all that. But if I plot it, I have to stick to, okay, I got to do this, then I got to do this, then I got to do this. And it's too tough for me. I have to be able to go all the way around and have all these crazy ideas. And sometimes it takes a little more time to do it that way, because it's like, okay, I'll write it. Then it's like, no, that doesn't work. You know, get rid of that and then start over. But I know I'm just,
When Stephen King used to write, his goal is 6 pages a day, period. He goes, and sometimes those 6 pages come easily, and sometimes he says it's rough, but he used to do paper. And then he had to convert to, eventually had to convert to computer because he has arthritis.
Oh,
very similar.
Yeah, there you go.
Roughly with your process. So then you take it chapter by chapter, put it into Scrivener, and then you can do, you know, the other, like read through, the edit, flow, pacing, tension, etc. Within the with that app or that program.
Yeah. The neat thing about Scrivener as well is that when you put your ideas in, you can label like, you know, in this chapter, you'll see this character, this character, this character, and then also it'll give you an arc too, so you can kind of see the writer's arc. You know, it's kind of, and I forget how it goes, but it's the cat who wrote a novel, I think, is the cat that saves a novel. The character arc, is that what it is?
Save the cat.
Save the cat. Yes. So
or the hero's journey. Yeah, there's a bunch of
them. I think I have. Do I have that book? I think I've got that book. Where did I put? Yes, I do. There we go. If I don't turn down my bookshelf, but yes, here we go. I do have that one. But that was so fascinating, the character arc of, okay, this comes here, and then it's got to go to here, and then it's got to go to here, and then it's like, wow, that it makes sense. Every book or every movie, it seems like, has that arc, so it makes total sense.
Well, why romance? It's very unique, but I love that you're a man writing it. I feel like men are underrepresented in romance. It's just, you know, women write men for women. But it's so fascinating that when men write romance, because it's a totally different tone, a way of thinking about everything.
Yeah. I think, especially in this day and age, we all need an HEA, happily ever after. It's nice to be able to read something and have that, you know, that, okay, I escaped for a while and I felt good about this story, and I felt for these characters, and these characters seem like real people to me. So I've always had that boy meets girl, you know, kind of thing. You know, the adversity of, you know, real life, how obviously you have to put it in there to make the characters and the scene and all that seem real. But I've always had that kind of, you know, I like a good love story, and it's kind of, I don't know, maybe it's strange for a guy to say that, but I've always
the men that, you know, we say hopeless romantics, but there's lots of romantic men.
I don't know, have you ever seen the movie Major League with Tom Berenger and Rene Russo? So, you know, this, and trust me, there's a point to this. At the end of the movie, of course, you know, she says, okay, I'm going back to my fiance, and so he's in love with her and all that. And at the end of the movie, she looks at him as in the stands, and he's like standing on the field, and she looks at him and just goes, so basically her engagement ring is gone, and they get together at the end. It's always like, oh wow, it's like, man, now that is an ending. So that's kind of, I've always kind of had that, I've been a fan of that kind of ending. The other thing,
why you went into romance and not, you know, sci-fi and thriller and suspense tend to be dominated more by men than women. So, but I love that you're doing romance.
Well, I appreciate that. And I tell you, the interesting thing, and luckily, you know, one of the responsibilities as a male romance writer is you got to get your straight, and you got to write the way that it should be. You can't say, oh, her simple pouting breast and her heart-shaped rear, and it's like, no, because of course I'm sure that people are going to look and say, oh yeah, you're a man that writes romance. Oh, I can't wait to see the descriptions you have, in your book. So it's like, now in my characters, uh, and I'm looking forward to reading your books because they're going to be so much different than mine. But in my books, there's no sex. There's kissing, sweet romance, meet cute, that kind of thing, and But I tell you, if I ever had to write a sex scene, I envy you. I am like, man, Gigi, you're gonna have to give me some tips sometime, because I would write it and then I'd be like, yeah, I don't know if I could, And then the other thing is, if I ever did and it got published, it's like my mom would read it, Red would read it, and so I'd be kind of, I don't know, So I envy you. You must, it must be something to be able to do that.
But that's the thing, right? You have to write what you're comfortable with. I originally started off with thrillers, very much like Stephen King, very much. I have two of them that I'm just like, where did, it's a little disconcerting. You're like, where did all this horror and gore come from? But yes, I have one of my best friends. He reads every one of my books, and I was like, I'm not writing them for you.
Yep. So do you ever like write something and you give it to somebody and then you kind of like, oh my God, I don't know, I'm a little embarrassed by this, what they're going to think of me, that sort of thing?
I think I did when I was younger, and then I tell you, this is going to sound really terrible, but it's so honest. I am divorced, so I have no judgment there. I am an independent author, so I do not have an employer that may stumble upon me. And in fact, some of my past employees, because I used to manage 19 managers and over 400 people, they read my books.
Wow.
I know.
Wow.
So cute.
Yeah.
My mother, who just passed away, she would read them. And she was like,
how was that?
Well, we're Midwestern Lutheran, so she was like, oh honey, oh I don't know. Yeah.
Well, you know what, but that's kind of like the seal of approval right there. If she gives you, oh, I don't know, it's like, yeah, there must be something there. I did something right there.
Yeah, she in my last book that's coming out on Tuesday, the 31st, I don't even know what day that is, I'm so mixed up. I have a dedication to her because she told me when she first saw my second book that I ever put out, that shirtless man has a naked chest, and she's like, oh my, oh honey, with that Minnesota accent, I don't know, like, we should shirtless, these naked men aren't going to sell, they're not going to sell. And I said, Mom, wait till you see that there's like sex scenes in there. Oh, I don't know where me and your father went wrong.
That's when you know you hit the bullseye.
I was like, Mom, I love you, but you're 83 and you're not my target audience.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It sounds like you hit the target on that one. Oh, man.
No. Okay, so let me ask you, what is the hardest part of writing and what's the easiest?
I think the hardest part of writing is when you write a story and you read it over and you read it over and you read it over, eventually you get blind to it. You miss the easiest typo. You miss the connection. I'll give you an example. There was one book that I had, the Brooklyn book. The manager of the baseball team, his name is Mike Backman. Well, in a couple of paragraphs, I have him as Mike Harris. And it's like I missed it like the first 20 times that, So I think that's the hardest thing. People talk about writer's block, and I respect that. And there's sometimes when, it's like, the ideas just aren't coming. And, you just got to put the manuscript away for an hour, a day, whatever, and just kind of clear your head. Don't worry about it. Don't stress about it. But I know that writer's block sometimes can make things very hard. You start to doubt yourself. You're like, man, I can't get through this. I'm just going to toss this book, or I'm just going to work on something else. So I think I think the pressure that we put on ourselves, like I talked about how when I write in the margins, you stink, this is awful. I think sometimes you just have to take a breath and say, you know what, I'm doing pretty good. This is okay. It's not good now, but the reason why I'm a good writer, and the reason why is because I looked at this and said, you know what, this isn't very good. If I wasn't a good writer, then I'd be like, oh yeah, that looks pretty good, or yeah, you know, whatever. But I think that's probably the hardest thing, is that, as far as the easiest thing, you know, I don't know if there is an easiest thing, because it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of tears, and it's a lot of sleepless nights, and it's a lot of thinking about your book when you're not working on your book. But it's a labor of love, though. Maybe that's the easiest part. It's like, if you love something, it all becomes easy, you know, because you want to work on it all the time. You want to craft it, you want to mold it, you want to make it into something great. I think creating characters for me is easy, because it's like, when we talk about, you know, people in real life, that would make a good character. Or, you know, the way that person, you know, is always, you know, wears these, you know, crazy sunglasses or whatever, boom, you can put that into a book when you talk about characters. So I think that maybe that part is the easy part. But overall, writing is, you know, it's not as easy as it looks. The other thing, it's like, people see the finished book and they think, oh man, I can do that, it's so easy. But as you know, they don't know that, you know, years, months, years, you know, whatever has gone into writing this book. Hour after hour of editing, of proofing, of rereading it and rereading it,
and rewrite.
and rewriting as well. So they see the finished product and they think, oh, this is so easy, but you know, it's not. There's a quote in the book, Sun Tzu, the Art of War. And I forget the exact words, but it's like, they will not see all the hard work. They will just see the results of what we have done. And I read that. I'm like, that's what we do as a writer. They'll never see everything that we did. They'll just see the finished product and think it's wonderful. So
I always think of a swan. They're so graceful on the pond. You don't see underneath how hard that they are actually swimming.
yeah, absolutely. And as writers, we see that in other writers. Like, I can see that in you. I know when you know, with your books and all that, I'm sure, you know, months, years, hours, you know, whatever has gone into your book. And so I know that pain that you went through, but look at what exists, and look at what will exist forever. You know, nobody can ever take that away from you. And I think that's one of the great things about what we do, is that once it's out there, boom, it lives forever.
Well, and I think too, each book you put out, hopefully you're getting better on writing craft. And that's why I like to do these interviews, because I feel like writing a book and publishing is on everyone's bucket list. And I want to encourage people. There is a million different ways to start your author journey. And I love doing these interviews to hear what people, how they started, how they get motivated when they have setbacks, when they're rejected. What happens then? Because people really relate and gravitate to these interviews.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad that you brought that up. And I would have regretted not being able to tell this story, but you talk about rejections. And so I've tried to do traditional publishing with all of my books. Gigi, I'm up to 600 and, oh, this is over 4 years, 631 rejections, I think. I keep everything on a spreadsheet, the literary agency, the agent, you know, what book it was, the date, and all that. And I think it's up to 631 over the 4 books that I've done. And actually, I think I've queried the Ebbets Field book, the Redhead in Brooklyn book. And so I think that's why I have the release date, and it's going to go out, because nobody's, you know, so it's, you know, but you can always channel rejection into a positive thing. So what I've decided to do is I've kept everything on a spreadsheet. And if the day comes, I ever become a New York Times bestselling author or an Amazon bestselling author, yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all those spreadsheets, I'm going to print them out, I'm going to put them in a frame, I'm going to put them in my writing room. Actually, the writing room is called the Hemingway room.
Oh,
So yeah, I wish Hemingway would come and help me with my writing. So yeah, but I'm going to put that up on the wall, and I'm going to look at that. I'm going to say, you know what? You never gave up. And again, with, like we're talking about the books, what you've done will live forever. It's going to be inspirational to another author. You might think about my story one day and said, you know what? I had all these years of rejections, all that, and boom, I'm a New York Times bestseller, or I've been signed by this great agent, or my book is going to be made into a movie. And you think about that, all the time and all the heartbreak and the rejections, it was all worth it. Because I tell you, every rejection I get is like a sock in the eye, right between the eyes. I'm like, man, I'm worthless. I'm a terrible writer. I'm just, you know, awful. And then the next morning I wake up and think, okay, you had your chance. You passed on me. One day you're going to regret doing that. So that's my motivation.
Your published works are your legacy. And so
Yeah.
it doesn't matter if it's your publishing imprint on them or someone else's. It's your legacy.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I have to say, I probably will never traditionally publish because I want to write the story I want to write, and I want my covers to look to how I want to. And I did have a book strategist. Geez, when I first started I can't remember. I think it was in 2017. I sent something over, and she says, "Oh, you're going to have to change the ending because da 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 da." And I said, "No." And she said, "I'm telling you now that when I met with her literary agent friend, because I live in Houston, and Houston has a humongous market of authors, and they said you're going to have to change the cover and the ending." And I just said, "Okay, thanks, but no." And so I think a lot of the publishing, how I do have a couple author friends of mine that are traditionally published, and they're doing really, really well, but they had to have a following first. And they don't get the big budget, the James Patterson, the Dan Brown, those guys get the big budget. So
yeah. Well, you bring up a great point. The other thing is, like, when you write the book, and if it's traditionally published, isn't it like a year and a half until it actually hits is it longer than that, the bookshelves? 2 years.
One of my friends, she's out of the UK. She writes historical romance, some Regency romance, and she can be a year or two from it coming out.
Yeah. So, and I tell you, we talk about covers, and hopefully your viewers might get some inspiration for this. So these covers I made by myself, and I'm not a graphic artist, but Gigi, I didn't have the money. I didn't have any. I'm like, okay, you have to figure out a way to get this done. So I learned Photoshop, and through trial and error, and it took a while, but it's like, okay, I like what I did here. No, I don't like what I did here. Let's change this and all that. But it goes back to, okay, well, I can't do my covers because I can't afford it. Okay, so I'm not going to write. It's like, no, I'm going to figure out a way to do this. So back to your point is, they dictated what your covers look like. No, I like the way that this cover looks, and I've created it. And, to me, that means everything, because it's something that came from here. Nobody else did.
Well, illustrated covers are all the rage. And so your covers blend in with the market so well. We all have to look alike, but then you still have to stand out.
Yeah. I did a lot of research at Barnes & Noble and also on Amazon for RomCom covers and what, works and whatever. So what's funny is that, okay, real quick. So this, the picture, not the redhead, but the picture is the picture I took of the Scribner's building when we're in New York. And I just took it into Photoshop and, animated it and all that, and then added the redhead and all that. This picture I took in Hilton Head, obviously without the redhead, but this is a beach scene in Hilton Head during the sunrise, and so I animated it using Photoshop. And then the other books, I just made the cover, like I found a car, and then the redhead I created by myself. And the same thing with the Tottenham book. I found the Tottenham Stadium, and kind of animated it, and then created the redhead there. But it's like, okay, if you really want to do something, you'll find a way to do it. And I hope your viewers will gain some inspiration, because, we look at that and it's like, you're not good enough to create a cover. You're not good enough to write a book or whatever. It's like, yeah, you are. If you put your heart and your soul into it, there's nothing you can't accomplish,
Oh my gosh, you're so right, because I feel like writing a book is death by 1,000 steps and 1,000 cuts, because you are going to be rejected. You are going to have those that don't like the cover, or they don't like the character, or they leave a bad review. I feel like there is so much negativity that you have to overcome, and you have to keep picking yourself up by your bootstraps and continue on and believing in you. And that perseverance is, I think I talk to every author, and everyone has to persevere, or else they quit. And you think, oh my gosh, you're only going to get better every time you put out another book. Your craft got better. You learned more.
Yeah.
It's just, eventually you'll get to 20 books, and maybe you'll finally be happy.
That's right. Well, it's like they always say, you only lose when you quit. And I've always believed that. And you know, a lot of it is defiance. You know, I got to a point where I was like, you know what, I'm tired of people telling me what I can and can't do. You know what? So I'm like, you know what, I'm doing this. And that's a lot of motivation. Some of those mornings at 4:30, God, Gigi, I was dog tired, you know, because we have 2 kids, and this is when the kids were a little bit younger. And I would sit there at my desk and I'd be like, oh my God. And then I'd think, oh, well, you got 2 rejections yesterday. Oh, okay. Boom. Let's go back. Let's get back on it. You know,
Through you. So, let me get to writing.
Yes.
Yeah.
So absolutely. Let's see. When did you use? When you use Tottenham, are you allowed to use the same mascot name as the team to be fictional? Oh, that's a good question. You know what? I think that with and I kind of looked this up. I think that if you, because in the people in the story are not real people from the, like I didn't use the president's of Tottenham's name, you know, that kind of thing. I think you can use the sports team's name, but I don't think you can get specific with people and what they say, because then that, I think that runs into slander.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And we
Yeah.
all have disclaimer on the front that, oh, these are fictional in the events, and you know how we all have that, we have a disclaimer language.
Yep. So, but I tell you, Gigi, I wish I could meet a Scottish goalkeeper named Samantha Dinsmore. So I wish she was real. But you know what? This is, you're asking me questions. I'm going to ask you a question, because I'm always curious with authors. Do you ever talk to your characters? Are they real life people in your head? Because I talk to my characters all the time, and I feel like they're real people. They're like friends of mine that I'm going to see for drinks later, or I'm going to have dinner with later. So do you ever do that?
Yes and no. So yes, I do. But what the no is, if I go for a walk, then, and I write something, let's say I go for a walk or I'm out doing something non-writing, I will be like, they wouldn't say that at all. It's almost like the character talks to me, and like, I don't speak that way. That's not my word choice I would use. And I've had to rewrite that. What I love the most is when readers either love your character or hate your character. And I have my Canyon series. It's a very strong female protagonist, and she cusses. She is unforgiving. And I have people like I did not finish. I can't stand her. I can't relate to her. I don't like her. And I'm like, perfect. Because that's when she's real to them. They're no longer reading a book. They've already made her real, and they dislike her.
Yep.
And then I have other readers who are like, oh my gosh, I am her. I am her.
Oh, again, you've hit the bullseye if they can relate to that character. It's funny because I see that a lot of times where people will say, I really hated Alan Alda in MASH. He got on my nerves. Or Frank Burns, you know, or whatever. Or a character that just really stands out, because it's like, that actor did his job or her job. Perfect. That character that she got you to, you know, I'm real now. I don't like this person, you know, that kind of thing. So yes, absolutely.
So if I get a 3-star review or lower because people don't like the characters, that's perfect. They're not saying like she's a terrible writer, her writing craft is horrible. They're criticizing the story and the characters, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah. I got a review once, and bad reviews do hurt, but you can kind of make light of it. I got a review once that somebody wrote, "This is the worst book I ever read," and I wish I could reply back, but I wanted to say, "Well, at least you read my book." So.
I do read my reviews because I want to know. You know, there's information you can mine for data and reviews. I want to know. What am I doing good? What am I need more work on? What did you, I had to change around my team. You know, I think I'm on my 2nd developmental editor. I'm on my 3rd line editor. You know, just because some of the reviews, and it just, you know, you have to have people that believe in your body of work.
Yep.
I had 2 that just didn't. I mean, they were my developmental editor was literally rewriting my books.
Wow.
And that's, you know, that's not the purpose for them. So it's taken me a while to get my team assembled. And so that's probably been one of the hardest things.
Yep. No, I can totally understand, because a team, a good team will come together and they'll move forward in the same direction. And it's like, if your team is not good, you'll have one here or maybe one that's not moving forward with you. But if you can get everybody to get together, move in the same direction, boom, there's nothing, you know, that's the sky's limit. The sky is the limit right there.
So does Red edit for you, or does she read them, or?
She does read them. She's more of, like we talked about, Cougars and Cubs. She watches the Lifetime movie channel, and she loves all those slasher chick movies and Snapped and Oxygen, the
So
Casey
basically,
Anthony's. I'm
all,
sorry?
you know how there's all those reels that talk about women that like watch true crime, and the guy is kind of nervous, like that's
Uh,
her.
Gigi, I sleep with one eye open. Trust me. I'm like, okay, so yeah, it's a little rough sometimes. But um, as far as that goes, I have like beta readers that really help out. I've got some friends that have done copywriters, that kind of thing. And so, as a matter of fact, with the Redhead in Brooklyn book, I have a copy of it that I got from Amazon, and it's
Yeah.
like the proofed copy.
Right.
And so she's currently reading it now, and so she's giving me notes and looking through it. And so yeah, so that's my team. Red will read my books, but if I had like a psycho redhead in it that, did bad things or whatever, she probably would like it a little bit more. Let's put it that way.
But isn't it
So,
wonderful when your betas come back and tell you what's working, what's not, or the ideas for the future? I think that's wonderful.
yes. Well, like we talked about, you look at your characters and you're like, oh my God, this is exactly the way I wanted it. That's exactly the way they said it. This is what I should do. This is a wonderful story. And then your betas come back and say, you know what? She wouldn't have said that there. Or why do you make it so easy for them to fall in love? Why don't you put a little bit of a monkey wrench into this? And it's like, absolutely. Why didn't I think of that? So absolutely. That is, yeah, they are very important.
Because you can be too close to the story. Like when you had that name wrong and you didn't catch it, I did as well. He was Matt in the beginning, and then it was Mike, and then back to Matt. And everybody's like, how can you not catch that? You're too close to your own mistakes anymore.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the longer you work on it, the more mistakes happen that you don't see. Sienna's saying you need cheerleaders, not bomb makers. Hey, bring the cheerleaders. Let's do this. Sienna, I'm with you on this one. But no, I totally understand. And it's great when you can hand it off to somebody, like you were talking about your team. Mm-hmm. And then you don't have to worry about it, because I looked over the Ebbets Field, the Brooklyn book. I'm sorry, I call it Ebbets Field because they're at Ebbets Field. But yeah, the Redhead in Brooklyn, I've looked at that book for months now. And, well, actually longer than that because I've been writing it. But I've been proofing it for months. And then I'm like, man, when I handed the book off to my friend, I'm like, thank God I've got somebody that's going to see everything that I'm missing.
You're blind to it. So even though I have, I have 2 on my team that are paid. Then I have 3 other alpha readers, and they catch things, and then it goes out to my art team. And I mean, it can get by 6 people, and it's that same stupid mistake, and it gets by all of us, and so that's where I just feel like we all get blind to it.
Yes, absolutely we do. So thank God for that. We have to have a team, right? It takes a team.
It does. Well, I know we're running long. Do you have a time for questions, rapid fire?
Absolutely.
Okay, paperback or e-reader? What do you like?
Physical book, physical copy, hardback, #1, paperback, #2.
As evidenced by the bookcase behind you.
You got it. Well, actually, you know what? Hold on. Let me show you. So this is the Hemingway room. I don't know if you can see it, but so these are all the books, and there's pictures of Hemingway up top. Oh, and then
wow.
So there's all that, and then and there's all my Hemingway books up there, and then so these 3 shelves are Hemingway books, and then Fitzgerald is down here. So all of the literary books are right here. So yeah, so yeah.
And I want to live in that room.
Hey, come anytime. It's open to any writer, anytime that you want to come, and there's free wine or bourbon or lemonade, whatever you want. But yeah, so open invitation to come to the Hemingway room.
Can you imagine being like the literary greats, have a fire, and then your writers come in and you just brainstorm?
Oh, yeah. Now that's what I imagine heaven looks like.
Exactly. I think the same thing. I was like, that's writer's heaven.
Yes, it is.
Well, I'm officially envious of your Hemingway room.
Thank you. Like I said, anytime you need to come by and do some ideas or just find a place to write, you got it.
I'm jealous. Okay, plotting or pantsing?
Pansting, big time.
First person, do you write in first person or third person?
Third person, but the fountain pen book is my first attempt at first person.
How did that go?
Okay. Yeah, I just had to remember it was like, okay, write this like you're writing in a journal, and that helped me.
Yeah.
Yes, because sometimes you can get, and it's like, no, wait a minute, now you need to put an I here instead of we, or whatever. So
yeah. Plot driven or are you character driven?
Character driven.
Do you write alone, writing with friends, or write with partners?
Write alone.
Yeah, that 4 a.m. I'd imagine you're all by yourself.
I cannot find a partner anywhere that'd want to join me. It's like, God, okay, fine, I'll do this by myself.
Sienna is located in Australia, so maybe your time will match up with her.
Oh, Sienna, tell me you have the Australian accent, because I've got a friend who's a redhead as well, who lives in Brisbane. Mm-hmm. And I said it right too. It's not Brisbane, it's Brisbane. So Sienna, tell me you have the Australian accent. So I'm gonna have to make another book with another Sienna in there.
Yeah. Are you an outline or a discovery writer?
Discovery.
Do you write in silence or with music?
Silence. And she said, yeah. Yeah.
I was trying to think, Sienna, you are, well, I was trying to think, I do a writing sprint on Saturdays at 11 a.m. and I think that is her midnight or 1 in the morning.
I think, isn't it Aussie? Oh, yeah, come on. Now, I think, is it 14? They're 14 hours ahead of us, because because I've talked with my friend, her name is Kim as well, who is like I said, is in Brisbane. So I had to figure out when it was her, 9 o'clock or whatever, we could talk. So I think so it's 1 a.m.
Is it 1 a.m.? No, what is it? What's the time right now there?
So it's 9:30 where I am, 8:30 where you are.
Yeah.
So
14 hours ahead.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, okay.
Do you write with a deadline or do you write at your own pace?
Write at my own pace.
Series or standalones?
Well, standalone. Can you call the redhead? But it's not the same characters. But can you call this a series, even though they're different redheads?
I think no.
Okay, so there's
a commonality though. Okay. But I love the theme.
Okay, yeah. So so standalone.
Historical setting, present day or future?
Present day, except for the Brooklyn book, which we're going to go back to 1955.
Yeah.
Again, which was a blast to write, to do the research on what things were like in 1955.
My son played for the Brooklyn Dodgers, not the LA Dodgers. And so all the uniforms were the old school.
Oh, yeah.
And he played for them for 5 years.
Oh, that is awesome. That is awesome. And I have a Brooklyn
old one.
Yeah, the old one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Ivan, it has been like the fastest hour and a half chatting with you, and it's been such a delight. You are a really engaging author. I love your stories. So I would love to do this again when your Brooklyn Dodgers book comes out in April, or somewhere around there, before or after.
Absolutely. And I don't know, do you have any more questions? Because I can go longer if you need me to, but because this has been so much fun. So yes, we definitely should get back together again, maybe at the end of March before the book comes out.
Yeah. So I'll connect with you on DMs and we'll schedule, because we didn't even scratch the surface of my questions.
Oh, okay, cool. All right. So line up your questions and we'll reconnect.
Well, have a wonderful week, and I will connect with you in the DMs.
Real quick, I just want to tell you that I was very moved by what you were saying about your mother passing, and I just want to tell you, from the bottom of my heart, peace be with you, friend. I've lost my father before, and I know that feeling, and I just want to let you know I'm praying for you. You're in our thoughts and all that, and I just hope that the pain passes and you just remember the good times. But just let you know that we're thinking about you.
Oh gosh.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make you cry.
It's okay. It's okay. She was just so important in my life. And so, yeah, but that's beautiful. And I really appreciate it. And of course, all prayers are accepted.
No problem. You got it. And I look forward to talking to you in March. Take care of yourself, okay?
All right. Thanks,
Thank you, Gigi.
Ciao for now.
Bye-bye.